Live chat.
Good morning, Boroda. Good morning to Learning and Skills Committee of the 23rd of April. We're joined by members of the finance panel also, so we extend a very warm welcome to you all. Certainly help in our contribution to any questions that we have at item 5 today. First item on your agenda is apologies for absence. I've had apologies from Councillor Lucy from committee. Kath, you've got apologies from officers as well.
Yeah, we've also got apologies from Councillor Pete Roberts, who's on other council business today, Councillor Jeremy Pugh and Councillor Owen Vaughan from Finance Panel, Gareth Hall, Co-operative Member for Finance Panel, officers Georgie Bevan, Head of Service, Jane Thomas, Director of Corporate Services, and we've been notified that Councillor Bryn will be a little bit late.
Good. Does anybody else have any other people they'd like to add to our apologies? If not, we'll go to item 2 on your agenda, disclosure of interest. Has anybody got anything to declare? Catherine, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much it'll be discussed, but obviously I've got an interest in the Llanfochlin catchment area review, and obviously that's part of the strategic plan.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I'm not sure on that one really. There's no decision making being made today.
No, I didn't think it was much of an interest, but I thought I'd best just to raise it anyway.
I'm just thinking really. Anybody got any advice to give on that one? Obviously it's only in the interest of one school within that catchment, isn't it? But
yeah, well, 2, because obviously it's Llanfochlin as well. But...
yeah. Catherine, I'm going to take the easy route out, and I'm just going to say to you is that it'll be up to you whether you declare on that one or not. But in my opinion, I think you'll be okay today. But
yeah, okay, yeah.
If anybody tells me different throughout the meeting, that's fine. I'll let.
Thank you, Chair. Just similar to Catherine, really. Just for clarity, just for information. I don't think there's an interest involved here, but my son teaches at Corenion, and my wife is a part-time teacher, sometimes at Llanfochlin. And
yeah,
similar connections, other connections as Catherine. So just for perfect clarity. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for that clarity. And in my opinion, both of you have declared an interest, and I think it'd be interesting to hear your views on the areas as they come up as well. So, and as I said, we're not actually in decision making. So, unless somebody tells me different through the meeting, we'll go with that. Similarly, at item 3, declarations of party whip. I'm guessing there'll be nothing there, but if there is, please declare now. And that takes us to item 4 on your agenda, the minutes of our meeting on the 20th of March. They were chaired by Councillor Lucy, Vice Chair of Learning and Skills. Anything anybody would like to contribute there, or is anybody happy for me to propose that they're true and correct record?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, they've been proposed. I think that was Councillor Sue. Seconded? Yeah, thanks, Councillor Glynn. And judging on your silence, all in favour. Good, thank you. Members, that takes us to item 5 on the agenda, and I forgot to mention at the start of our meeting, we do have translation available today if anybody wishes to speak through the medium of Welsh. Boroda, Eilus, your interpretation button on your line down there where you source the Welsh English translation. But please encourage anybody that wishes to speak in Welsh, please do so. Item 5 on your agenda, I've got pop-ups everywhere all of a sudden. The Sustainable Communities for Learning Strategic Outline Programme. They're pages 13 to 62 in the pack. Usually I would go to Councillor Pete now for a short introduction, but as you have heard, that he's given his apologies today. So we're going to go directly over to Marianne to take us through the report, and we'll open up for questions afterwards. So, Boroda, Marianne.
Boroda. Can I first of all start with thank you for the opportunity to attend today to go through the new Sustainable Communities for Learning Strategic Outline Programme for the Council, which is highly ambitious. I'm joined today, as you can see on the screen, I've got Dr. Richard Jones, Director, with us today, and I've also got Jim Swaby, who's our professional lead for the property design services within the Council. And I've also got Mary and James from Finance, and I think Anne has joined us as well from Finance. So we've got a full team this morning. So as a bit of a background, in the past, we referred to the Schools Capital Programme as a 21st Century Schools Programme. So you'll be familiar with this term. We have delivered and built schools funded partly by the Council, partly by Welsh Government since 2014. And previously, the 21st Century Schools Programme was split into 5-year bands, and we were given a funding envelope based on our SOP. So I'm going to be referring to the programme as the SOP, okay? So we were given 5-year funding envelopes, and we needed to deliver our projects within the budget available. The Welsh Government have changed their approach in order to be able to be more flexible, given the volatility in the market. They've learned lessons along the way. We've learned lessons along the way, and all kinds of issues come up when we're delivering this scale of programme. So they've asked local authorities and colleges now for 9-year rolling programmes. These rolling programmes are based on 3-year, well, they're not bands, but 3-year tranches. So in years 1, 2 and 3, the expectation is that we include projects that are expected to reach full business case within the 3 years. Years 4, 5 and 6 are projects that are being developed and going through statutory consultation. And then the last 3 years are pipeline projects. And they're looking, they're looking for authorities to review their programme at least every 3 years. And this will allow us the ability to bring forward projects if needed, if we've delivered others, etc. So it's a far more flexible approach, which we welcome. The intervention rates are the same as previous. So in your papers, you'll see the intervention rates. 65% for community schools, 85% for voluntary aided, special schools get 75% funding, and then there's reference to the MIM, the mutual investment model, and then we've got extra over costs of net zero of 100% to meet the targets. So the investment objectives for the Welsh Government's programme can be found in detail, and I'm giving you the link in the Cabinet report. But basically, they are very clear about what they want this programme to achieve. So first of all, it's to transform learning environments and learner experience. It's to meet the demand for school places, to ensure we've got the right number of schools in the right places. And this includes criteria around Welsh medium places as well. Obviously, they've got improving condition and suitability of the education estate. And with this, they specifically request local authorities to reduce the amount of condition D buildings, so the worst school buildings that we have, but also condition C buildings as well. They're looking for local authorities to develop sustainable learning environments. Now, this alludes to the net zero targets that we have to achieve. And then the last one is around supporting the community. And this is around the community-focused element, where they're looking for schools to be more than just schools and to utilise schools as best as we can for the benefit of the community. So that's the background. Any questions on that before I go further? Happy to
no, I think that's a good place to stop off there. Obviously, there's the background. That's the new direction. Any questions? No, everybody clear and content on that item of the paper, yeah. Okay, Marianne.
Okay, great. So we have then been working on developing our SOP, and there's two key linkages here. First of all, our school building programme is central to sustainable Powys. So it's around looking at how we transform the schools estate, how we look at having a sustainable school sector going forward, and how we look at our schools as being community-focused facilities, and also how we meet the net zero agenda as well. So we've linked it very much to sustainable Powys, but we've also linked it very, very closely to the transforming education strategy, because that is the strategy that we've signed up to. And within that strategy, there's an enabling action to implement a major capital investment programme. And we've already got the words in our strategy around community-focused schools. So our strategy aligns very well with the way the Welsh Government's vision for this programme is going to be delivered. So within the paperwork, you will have the SOP itself, which is a chunky document. And within the SOP, it's based on the 5-case business model. So first of all, it asks us to outline how our programme meets a number of their key policy areas, such as regeneration, such as the WESP, such as community-focused schools, etc., active travel, climate change. So we've got the information around how how this programme links to delivering their key policy areas. We've also then got the economic case, which is where we've developed our own set of investment objectives, and you can see how they are different to the ones from the previous SOP. We've also then outlined how we've grouped options together. So we're looking at the do minimum option, an intermediate option, and a maximum option. And we went through an option appraisal exercise, and our preferred option then is option 3. I can go into more detail about that later. It also then gives us an opportunity to state our commercial case, so how we deliver projects, our procurement strategy, etc. And also then it gives you the financial case and the profiling of the projects, plus how we manage the overall programme. And at the end, it's got key milestones for the programme. These are very high-level estimations. We're closer on knowing the anticipated opening dates for the current projects, but obviously the others are estimates at this stage, very high level. And then at the end, there's a bit more detail then about what's going to be delivered within the first 3 years, and then the middle 3 years, and then the pipeline projects at the end. So, and on that, I will just end with the cost of the overall programme. Estimated cost is 300 million. So it's a significant chunk of money. We have profiled it over 12 years. So our profiling is for 12 years because of concerns around affordability. We can go into that in more detail as well. The other thing that I just need to say before I open for questions is the other difference here. As I said, we're not being given a pot of funding, and to deliver within that pot of funding. The new approach is very much based on each project standing up for itself. So the business case for each project will be scrutinised. And I think at that stage, the council, as well as Welsh Government, considers the affordability of each project on a case-by-case basis. And I think I've given you enough of an overview now, so over to you for questions.
Thanks, Marianne. Obviously, there's an awful lot of detail behind everything that Marianne has told us, but yeah, I think that's a really good summary to get us starting off. Happy to take questions from Scrutiny and the finance panel. Obviously, there's a lot of detail, and I actually think it's quite a straightforward document, actually. So very often the document can baffle us a little bit, but I think it does show exactly what is happening when and where and how much. So yeah, let's have some questions. Councillor Aled.
Thank you, Chair. I'll kick off. It's good to see this long-term view. Of course, we can get into more of the detail when we look at the actual SOP program. You know, so especially on pages, I think about mid-50s onwards, about the various projects over the next few years. We can just kick that around a bit later. But it is good to see this initial program. To be honest, it hasn't changed much over what it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. My frustration is that we've been treading water for a number of years. In my own local schools, they've had designs up on the wall in the classrooms of potential future schools, and now and it's going to be 10 years plus, isn't it? That's my frustration about the pace of change, and to be honest, how it fits in with sustainable powers going forward as well, and that's around affordability. But we can come to that more when we're looking at the stuff in the actual SOP itself. Ond diolch yn fawr, Marianne, and diolch am gyd o gwaith wyt ti'n neud ar hwn.
Okay, diolch. Can I respond?
Of course you can.
One thing I didn't clarify was Welsh Government are allowing authorities to move their what was called Ban B projects into the 9-year programme. So our remaining Ban B projects are Bro Hyddgen, Senny Bridge, Bryn Llywarch and Calon and Erwen. So those are in design phase, so that those move into the 9-year rolling programme. So that does take a significant chunk of the funding. I appreciate the frustration, Aled. What another change I think we need to think about here, and we've alluded to it in the papers, is in the past we've tended to look at new builds and tended to deliver new builds. What we need to look at as we go forward with this more flexible programme is whether we can remodel schools or whether we add extensions, etc. So let's see if we can get the funding to go further and impact more schools than the previous programme. So just to say that as well. We've also been discussing, and I've alluded to it in the SOP as well, whether we look at different models of building. Jim's on the call, so he's far closer to this than I am, but whether there's opportunity for quicker delivery through other means, such as off-site builds, etc., modular builds. Jim can outline that. So we're trying to make sure that we look at all kinds of things within this new programme. And I think the preferred option, option 3, I hope the wording is flexible enough for us to sort of be utilising the funding as flexibly as possible. Okay.
Thank you, Marianne. Jim, do you want to come in there and just give us a flavour of the new thinking there, or are you happy to comment at this stage?
No, if I can come in very briefly, I think what we're looking for is a flexibility of approach within the programme to find the right solution for the particular project. No two projects are the same. Projects can be very similar, but actually, your strategic approach to them can vary quite considerably. So we're looking to widen it. Off-site construction is one form of modern methods of construction. We already, and have for many years, used elements of modern methods of construction. So it's continuing and extending that discussion against the need to make the pound go further.
Thanks, Jim. Excuse my ignorance here. Off-site construction?
So off-site construction is where elements are built in a factory, and that can be either wall cassettes, floor cassettes, roof cassettes, or it can be pods or modules. So it's a kind of catch-all term, and timber framing at its best is exactly that. So the timber frame is produced off-site rather than being constructed on the construction site itself.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Aled is coming back.
No, I welcome that flexibility. It's important that we use potentially any latest technology. It's important, and I know Jim's really keen on that side as well. So positive. Just going back to the report itself, reference there, the min option. When work was done on that a few years ago, there wasn't a big advantage, and it has quite a few drawbacks as well. Has any further reassessment been made of that model or not?
No, no, we haven't at all. What we did previously was we compared the cost of Brecon High School, didn't we, quite a few years ago, and run it under the MIM model. And I think we weren't having any advantage from the MIM model for Brecon High School. I think we need to do it again. I think we need to run it again. The MIM has certain issues. First of all, they were looking for projects of over 100 million, so large scale projects. They were looking to batch projects together. So I'm not sure it would suit our projects, because we were always at a lower cost than the 100 million. Something we need to look at in any case. So we will be doing that exercise as well.
Catherine.
Yeah, hi, sorry. I was just a question about additional learning needs. Reading through, I can only see really in terms of looking at kind of the ALN provision across powers, I can only see really comments in the strategy about Bryn Clower and kind of developing the new school there. There's nothing that I can see about any kind of investment in developing any hubs anywhere else. Because obviously one of the aims for the ALN is to ensure that provision is as close as possible to our students. When looking at, say, for example, my children, I've got one that's looking at it at the moment. You're looking at upwards of an hour's travel to get down to Bryn Clower, which I think is too much. I've been told by Sam Buttlin Head that he has space available immediately, that they've identified that they can produce for a hub. But there's nothing in this strategy about heading towards that direction. Has that changed, or is it just that it wasn't the place to put it in this paper?
There's a separate ALN review happening currently. So I've mentioned the review. So in terms of being more specific around ALN, I think we'll have to wait until the outcome of the review is there. But as I said, the programme is flexible. In terms of ALN, we've got 3 special schools in the county. So Penmaes is relatively new down in Brecon. Cadewine is opening soon, so we've got a new building for Cadewine, and then Bryn Clower is our other special school. So in terms of the major investment to support those, that's already happening. Another way that we take account of ALN is through design, and Jim will be able to comment here. So within the design for schools, and I've seen it over time since I started working on this programme, there's such a different approach now to ALN and the need for spaces within schools for pupils with ALN, and that's changed quite significantly from our very early days. Jim, do you want to come in there on sort of how we approach that bit?
So each of the new school designs has an ALN component. Again, it's about flexibility because solutions are not the same for particular places. Schools obviously vary in size. No 2 power schools have ever been the same. The ALN requirements are not the same within each of them, but each of the schemes we've currently got in place has an ALN component that I think long term will sit against the development of kind of hub and spoke model that perhaps the school service might develop.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Marianne. Hi, Jim. Good morning. I was just wondering, I think I mentioned it in one of the last couple of meetings about, I don't see anything here about the hub of Bryn Clower, Bryn Bach in Ystrad. I know through attending governing bodies and Ysgol Maes y Dderwen, where the site is, that sometimes things crop up with regards to repairs in that part of the school or things they need. Who pays for it? Do Maes y Dderwen have to fork out, or does it come through Bryn Llawach? There's still a lot of not quite sure there really, but I'd like to know, is it a success, Marianne? Is it working? How many children do we have there? How much does it cost us in the authority to run that? I mean, I'm a governor myself, but I'm completely in the dark about it.
Okay, I haven't got that information, Sue, but I can get that for you from ALM colleagues, if that's okay.
Yeah, you know, I'd like to know that it's worked. I hope, I really hope it's working, because we did need it here.
Yeah,
I do see some youngsters out playing on the site when I pass by. They all look very happy, so I really do hope it's working. And going back to what we were talking about, having things built off site, Jim. I mean, I'd love to see that being done after what we went through in there when we had all those porta cabins and everything for months and months on the site, and the cost of that must have been astronomical. So I really do welcome all these new innovations, and I'd like to see that in action as if we can, because there has to be a better way forward than what we went through in there, through no fault of yours, Jim, or anybody in authority. That was then, it was many years ago, but I'd like to see us going forward in a different way. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Sue. Councillor Aled.
Sorry, again, Chair. Ysgol Cydewyn were meant to have a satellite. That decision was taken, I thought, at Ysgol Llanfodlin, but it sort of never materialised. I just mention that as well, and the fact that the PIU, they're looking at a different business model. Clearly, that business model will inform some of this thinking going forward as well, will it, Marianne?
Yes, if possible, and if capital funding is required, again, it's sort of part of the ALN review, how we deliver the PRU as well. Haven't been specific about it here, but it's all about flexibility.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to make a comment? You're all very quiet this morning. Explain to me, Marianne, that you've got the three different objectives in within the plan, and your preferred option is objective 3. Why are objective 1 and objective 2 within the plan? Are they still options, or because the overall costings are done on objective 3?
The options, if you look at the options, the first option is around do minimum, so delivering the projects that we currently have in design state, so essentially band B. And those are known. They're in design. They've been in design for quite a long time, and we're on track with them. So that could have been, and this was a really realistic option because of the state of the council finances. Mm-hmm. we were asking our, excuse me, my dog is at the door. Okay, so we were asking ourselves whether could we only afford to deliver those projects. We were, really at that stage thinking, well, that's the very least we can deliver. And that's affordable. That's in the capital programme. Should we just start with that? You can see option 2 then. Option 2 adds. It includes the projects in option 1, but it brings in more. So we then added in projects that would deliver the aspirations of the West, because we thought that was a key criteria for the council strategically. So you can see there the addition of Ysgol Calon Cymru, and Ysgol Calon Cymru includes a new build in Llandrindod, and then a north through Welsh Media new builds. And all of this obviously subject to cabinet approval, to go to formal consultation and all the school reorganisation process. We've also brought in Ysgol Bro Corinion here as well, because we are currently in the objection period for changing the language category of Bro Corinion. So that hasn't concluded yet, and that would be subject to cabinet decision. But Ysgol Bro Corinion is an all-through school, newly established in few years ago, but operates across two sites. Even though they're quite closely located, there are it's not the most efficient all-through school model. So we brought that in there. Then the last option, option 3, which is our preferred option, it's the same. So it's option 2, but building on it. So we bring in other projects. So we've alluded here to the Llanfyllin catchment. We've reviewed the Llanfyllin catchment. The outcome of the Llanfyllin catchment was a combination of school reorganisation and new builds. So that is added in as well. We've also, and I think this is important to note, and I see a little bit of there's an error. Actually, the option 1, do minimum, deliver projects currently in design stages. And it should also say, as it says in the cabinet paper, and any schools in condition D. So that covers that one. So the condition D element would be throughout all the options and within the preferred option. So so the reason we thought that option 3 is a preferred option is because it just delivers our strategic aims and objectives from the strategy. It addresses more of the school conditions, and it's flexible enough to be able to deal with anything that comes through, or any further changes from any other school reviews, etc. So that's really the reasoning for option 3 being the preferred option. But I have to say, we did start with a serious consideration: can we only afford to do what we're currently doing?
Okay, thank you, Marianne. That clarifies that. Okay, I've got Aled and Councillor Bryn waiting, but I'd just like to develop that a bit further. So if this paper goes towards Cabinet, they could still choose objective 1?
They could, they could, but our recommendation is option 3.
I'm just thinking from a financial point of view, and obviously we know that what council finances are right across Wales. You know, there could be consideration. I slightly worry about that, considering that you've said it's linked to the transformation process, but like objective 3, you know, and if you take the Llanfyllin catchment area, things are already progressing in that matter. And then if objective 3 didn't go through, it would leave areas, you know, the already closure of Llangedwin School. And if objective 3 wasn't chosen, that area is going to be left wanting, really.
Can I come back in on that?
Yeah.
And I think I'll bring James in here as well. We've profiled the programme over 12 years rather than the 9 years, because we think, you know, are we going to achieve everything in option 3 within 9 years? I would say probably not. And can we afford to deliver within the 9 years? So in terms of ensuring that we can afford it, we've extended the profile. And I'm sure many other authorities would be doing the same and in the same situation. I think what Cabinet will need to consider is, if we don't do this, what happens to our school estate?
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
It's false economy, isn't it? So given the scale of the issues that our schools are facing, I'm recommending very strongly that we go with the preferred option and maximise as much of that 300 million as we can. I don't know, James, do you want to come in?
Do you want to give a perspective from finance there, James?
Yeah, so, well, of course, the first schemes in option 1 are already in the capital programme. As we get into option 2 and 3, the business case at each stage will develop the needs for the school, what need is there, or what type of school, how big the school, what the costs are involved, what costs are there. It's quite difficult at this stage to get all of those costs nailed down, because there's so many variables going forward. You know, there's a commitment in the capital programme, I think, of a certain amount per year towards continuing schools transformation. And as it gets to that point in time, hopefully we'll see how we can fund each of the stages through those business cases. And, you know, I think at that point, the business cases will make their own cases. Of course, we're assuming that Welsh Government will fund their percentage of this as well, that they, you know, at 65%, that would be a substantial hit. So if Welsh Government weren't there as well. So we need there's lots of things to fall into place for us to be able to afford to fund all of these things. But it's great to have such an ambitious plan, have things in place and to work to these points and give us somewhere to work to.
Okay, thank you very much both. Councillor Aled.
I think Bryn was in front of me.
All
Really?
right, Councillor Bryn, I did inform everybody we do have Welsh translation today, so if you wish to speak in Welsh, Bryn, please do so.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Mae'n ddrwg gen i, ges i drafferth mawr dod mewn i ddechrau'r cyfarfod, ac o'n i'n sido beth wedi cael ei drafod, ond mae Marian wedi cyffwrdd â y sawl agwedd sy'n arbennig o bwysig i fi, fel y gwyddoch chi ynglyn â datblygiad addysg Gymraeg. O ran, oes am modd defnyddio'r cynllun yma i wasgu mwy o cydweithrediad yn wedig yn y gogledd. Mae rhaid i ysgol Careinion, Bro Careinion ac ysgol Llanfyllin. Dwi'n meddwl yn y tymor byr a'r tymor hir, cydweithio'n agos iawn mwyn darparu cwricwlwm cyflawn tygau. Dio ddim yn deg i disgwyl i blant deithio o Penycha Gogledd Dwyrain y Sir i nag o'r gorllewin chwaith i un ysgol ganolog, un adeilad ganolog, ond os modd i rhedeg yr ysgolion mwy na lai fel i amserlennu pob peth fel ysgol cyfrwng Cymraeg, fel bod yr darpariaeth cyflawn yn gallu cael ei roi i blant o bob pen y sir, lle bynnag maen nhw'n mynychu yr ysgol. Dyna sy'n rôl, dyn ni angen cydweithrediad cry yn fanna. Ys modd i sicrhau bod y prosiect yma'n gyrru cydweithrediad fel hynna yn ei flaen?
Dwi'n meddwl bod yr arian cyfalaf yn mynd tuag at hwnnw, ond yn sicr petai cabinet yn cytuno i symud Bro Careinion, mae'n rhaid i ni edrych ar y gydweithio rhwng Bro Hydgen a Bro Careinion mwyn gallu darparu addysg cyfrwng Gymraeg ar ystod o bynciau dyn ni angen. Ond dwi'n meddwl bod y cweit yn ffitio gyda'r cynllun yma.
Ie, dwi wedi clywed sawl tro am y cydweithrediad rhwng ysgol Bro Careinion ac ysgol Bro Hydgen. Gwych o beth. Ond sut mae hwnna'n mynd i helpu plant yn y Gogledd Ddwyrain?
Wel, bydd darpariaeth ar gael yn Llanfyllin hefyd yn bydd, felly bydd rhaid ni gydweithio rhwng y dair ysgol, sy'n ni'n gweud. Dim cweit yn ffitio'r drafodaeth cyfalaf, falle.
Iawn, ie, oce. Iawn, ei adlar yn un rhan.
Content, Bryn?
Sorry?
You okay there, Bryn?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, I'm still very concerned. You know, I'm not sure if there's room for 3 buildings in the northeast corner of Powys. You know, Welsh Pool, Llanfair, and Llanfyllin. I still think that one proper Welsh medium school for bilingual education for everybody, and one English medium school would suffice for that corner of northeast Wales. But I'm usually shot down for such controversial ideas, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, but you've had the opportunity to make your point, and I'm sure everybody's listening. Councillor Aled.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Dwi ddim yn hollol cydweld be mae Bryn yn dweud, ond can we go forward and look at the actual proposals themselves in the documents where those various those 3 blocks are sort of highlighted there, really, and how that ties in with sustainable Powys. Because in other forums, we are told that schools need to be a minimum size. Secondary schools need to be minimum size of 750 children. Primary schools, potentially 210 minimum places. So you're talking about an intake of 150 in secondary schools, and and there's acknowledgement that's possibly not possible in Welsh medium, and that could be down to 120. And also it goes around the sixth form. How does this all tie together? Because from the proposals on page 58, it looks as though we're maintaining all the current schools. Ysgol Calon Cymru is a big issue as well. You've got two high schools there, 6 miles apart. You're going to have a Welsh medium one, and the previous cabinet definitely did not take this decision. I got a feeling officers took this decision in the run-up to the last election, or it hasn't been challenged by the current cabinet. From my view, you should have a Welsh medium school in Aberhonddu in Brecon, develop the Welsh primary school there to have a all-through Welsh medium school. So it serves people of Senebridge. At the moment, they have been ignored, and they're having to go out of county for their Welsh medium education. So that is a big mistake within this. How can you maintain two secondary schools in two different towns so close together? And that goes across Powys on various areas of the map. So how does this tie into sustainable Powys? I don't think it does. I really don't. I cannot see. In order to deliver those options for GCSEs, you have got to have a certain number of children within that cohort for that complete choice of options, and this is just reinforcing the same old. You need Welsh medium school in Dafydd Llwyd to be all through. Clearly, it'll have knock-on impacts on other areas, but if I'm real concerned about the long-term view of this program, and that's outlined on pages 58, 59, and 60. To start with, when was that decision made to make the Bilth campus to be a Welsh medium school, all through school? And also there's also proposals about taking away the Welsh streams out of schools. So schools would be either Welsh medium or bilingual, as Bryn would say, or English schools. So there's discussion around that as well. And the place-based planning approach has been taken to community councils and discussed with town and community councils as well. So there is a lack of coherence between the two different schemes. Diolch.
Yeah, no, I'll just add that, and reading the document, obviously we've got some long-term problems in catchment areas, and if we were truthful, we'd have addressed these in our transformation program sooner. I think we perhaps are providing some solutions to those catchment areas which we've developed in the transformation. I think perhaps we then have stood still and we got an opportunity here with the sustainable powers to take it one step further. And I don't think we're tying up the long-term solutions beyond that. We're still only picking up on those transformation catchment problems which we had. And one of them transformation catchment areas is Llanfochlin, and all of a sudden, we're looking at 2030 on that. So maybe that may be out of date by then. So maybe it does need a little bit more long-term objectives in it. Marianne, don't wish to add too much to Alice, but yeah, that was just my thoughts as well.
Okay, can I just respond? I'll start with Calon Cymru. The aspiration for Ysgol Calon Cymru and you're talking about Llandrindod and Build, is a new build in Llandrindod and Welsh medium in Build. That hasn't gone through this current cabinet, but that will be coming to this current cabinet within the next couple of months. So within this programme, apart from those that are currently in design, everything else is aspirational and will have to be based upon cabinet decision, any statutory processes required, and then the business case. So there'll have to be a lot of decision-making points throughout the journey. And if you are familiar with the Sustainable Powys model, we're looking at the 4 core hub areas. And I think this plan here is moving along that line, because within the 4 hub areas, we have to make sure that, first of all, we address Welsh medium. And Welsh medium needs to be understood that some of the Welsh medium secondary provision, if we are moving toward that model, will have to be smaller than sort of the minimum size of the secondary school that we're working to. So we need that. So I think that is in this plan. Plus then there are other things such as the need for investment in Calon Cymru, because Calon Cymru is in desperate stage situation anyway in terms of the building. So I think it does, and I think as well, if you look at things like the Brecon Primary School development, that is within Sustainable Powys. It's in Brecon. It's bringing together 3 schools into one. And if you look at the Llanfyllin catchment, that again is based on bringing together a number of schools. So I think in terms of the broader Sustainable Powys model, if you think about sustainability, this does address it, but you do need to make sure that it's phased and you're addressing your Welsh medium, you're addressing the rationalisation of schools, and you're addressing the poor condition of building. I think going forward, because of the flexibility within it, we will need to make sure that the transformation strategy and this plan and Sustainable Powys all align, because if there are any further changes going to happen, if we're developing more all-age schools, or if we're looking at post-16, for example, we will need to make sure that there's flexibility within this programme to address the capital needs.
Okay, Chris, I appreciate
sorry.
you being waiting a long time. I'm going to bring
Can I
Ali
just
back
come
in first, just to finish that
very
off.
quickly? You know, it's a shame the portfolio holder isn't here today, because it is his report after all. But I want to seek assurance that Welsh medium streams will not be removed from high schools.
That's a question for the portfolio holders. I'm not going to answer on his behalf, but the West is very clear in terms of the ambition to improve Welsh medium provision and improve access to Welsh medium provision. And in a county such as Powys, we have to consider all models. The Welsh medium, designated Welsh medium, plus the availability of streams because of access. Okay.
I do agree with you, Marianne, but I'd still like that answer. Maybe we can write to the portfolio holder. Thank you.
Thanks, Ali. I'll come to you, Chris. Councillor Chris.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. It's an interesting conversation going on, and I'm not fully familiar with educational funding as what some of the others on this call are. So some of this is about increasing my knowledge in some of the questions that I've got. On page 50 of the SOP, there is a table in there which has got different levels of funding on, and there's one entitled school church funding, and that comes in the latter years with about 1.8 million identified. One is I wanted to just understand, why is that later and how does that come in, and is that only addressing for church schools, or is it's not got any form of caveat on it at all, or is that available to all of the schools in this overall project scope. Again, on that same page, there is a mention about the assumption of that not being liable. Can you give me clarity and assurance that that is the case? Because if it isn't, there's an additional cost that we have to factor in. I always get concerned when people assume something, because that's not necessarily the case, although a lot of this is about modelling, so we put that in on there. And again, there was a reference earlier, I think at the beginning of the background, about implications for inflation. Inflation has thankfully started to come down, which is welcomed, but there are implications that inflation may be going back up again, and particularly in sectors where we've got the construction industry seems a bit more resistant to move in the same way. So I just wanted some assurances that looking at the different options and models, have we considered that factor in? And then finally, they mentioned about the timber-based construction and different options. Have we looked at the longevity of those type of new constructions based on the traditional? And do we ensure that we're going to get value for money by going down those routes? And I'll stop there, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. I think I know the answer to the first one, but I'm sure Marianne could deliver it a lot more eloquently than I can. Go on, Marianne.
Yeah, I'll bring in James as well on the VAT and the inflation, and Jim on the value for money and timber, etc. Quite simply, the church funding there alludes to one of the recommendations from the Llanfyllin Review was a new Church in Wales primary school to replace 2 other primary schools. So the way the funding works, Welsh Government provides additional funding for church schools, voluntary aided schools in particular. So it's a different rate. So James, that's what that alludes to. So it's specifically to one Church in Wales school up in the Llanfyllin catchment.
Anybody make a comment on the VAT? I assume it's in relation to new builds. Is somebody able to confirm that? Yeah,
I'll pick that one up. So the council is subject to something called partial exemption, and it's something that our VAT officer could spend hours explaining to you. He spent hours explaining to me, and I still haven't quite got it. He's the expert, so we'll go back to that. It's something where we actually don't charge VAT on some services that we provide, because, and if we reach a certain limit within 3 or 4 years, I believe, we may have to charge VAT or not be able to reclaim VAT on certain things. It's just highlighted in the report as something that we could come across. It's not something we've come across yet, and it's not something we expect to come across, but we have to just detail it in there that it is something that we could hit whilst we don't expect it to. Inflation, again, this is sort of, we've used current costs here for similar size schools, and that again, there's lots of ifs and buts to weigh in here. You know, inflation is currently going down, may go back up, may go down. We got different borrowing costs. We got, again, the business cases at each point at the relevant points in time for each of the schools going forward. We'll consider that. We'll consider construction costs, the different methods that Jim has outlined. We'll all have different costs. So we've just given a best guess estimate at this point in time. We haven't tried to factor in too much because this is just an outline plan. When we get to doing the detailed business cases, that's when the more detailed costings will come in, and that's when we'll start to build those sort of things in.
Okay, thank you very much. Got nobody else waiting. Councillor Bryn had his hand up, but I think we've lost him, to be honest with you. Oh no, Councillor Bryn is still with us. Anybody?
There's a further question, Chair, on value for money from timber frames.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I perhaps come in on that one. Yeah, the choice of structural frame should have no impact on the school. You know, we've got designing these new schools to improve teaching outcome, and you know, the frame itself should be very subservient. So the occupants of the building shouldn't be aware of the frame choice. And we've used a variety of techniques from traditional through steel frame and timber frame in recent years. Longevity and cost are always taken into account as part of that. Timber frame currently got some distinct advantages, particularly against local supply chains, which are well supported in the timber frame industry, and also in terms of the carbon agenda, both in terms of energy efficiency in the operation of the building. So we can get very thick timber frame walls. So it's not just little sticks on the outside. They're engineered trusses which are packed with insulation that provide good whole life insulation for the school. And we're also looking at cross-laminate timber frames, which are much more substantial. So there's a whole variety even within the timber frame element. But yes, I can give you the assertion we're looking at the cost-benefit analysis of that over the life of the building.
Thank you, Jim. Councillor Jebb.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask you, have we got any timber frame schools now? And if so, what's the oldest one we've got?
Oh, that's testing people now, Jeff.
We have Glenroder and Mocknant is probably the oldest, which Councillor Allard will remember the year.
That was probably built in 2008. It was open when I was in my first year as a councillor.
Is it showing signs of aging or weathering now, Allard, or are you happy? Is it to take the test of time?
No, it looks good.
Yeah.
It's slightly complicated roof, but you know, architects like Jim like I shouldn't tease Jim, but it's not like it's not, you know, I tend to design things like sheep sheds, but Jim has more subtlety than I do. There's more problem with the pellets, the wood burner over the years. That has been an issue. But other aspects of you know, it's a pleasant atmosphere when you're inside. There's no doubt about that.
It's like Chris said, there's a false economy. If it's not, we need to make sure they're going to last before we go down that road.
And one plea from me is, when you're building, make the classrooms an extra meter wide, because it always feels very tight within the classroom. I know the teachers do tend to fill it with everything. Doesn't matter what the size of the room is, but sometimes these modern classrooms do feel quite tight. But that's just me being big and fat.
Marianne, they're sticking the foundations in now before we've even been through the paper. Councillor Danny.
Thank you. The key benefit to timber frame, in my opinion, is the speed at which you can move. Once you've got the frame up and the roof on, all the trades are in at once. Your inside and your outside's going on all at the same time. So there's very little downtime, if any, to be honest.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Danny. Just on timescales, timeframes, and I understand the financial commitment, and I understand that, but when you consider the Llanfochlin catchment area, and we're looking at 2030 now, and Marianne, I'm only making the point. We've been in this transformation project for some time, and when I was chair of governors in Llanfochlin, we were heavily involved in a new build in Ysgol Llanfochlin. So I totally understand, but 2030 seems an awful long way off, and it also a lot of children have passed through that school before we've got some solutions, and we know the Llanfochlin catchment area has got some massive problems. Llanson Pride schools is overwhelmed with pupils. We've got Llangedwin School closing now. We've got Llanfochlin School with a really bad condition score. And I can go through that time, and I can go through many other schools in that area, but 2030 seems a long way off, and I don't really know if it needs an answer, because I know it's all down to finance, etc. But we do have pupils in that area who are not receiving the education which they deserve, and that's not from a teacher's point of view, but that's from a building point of view. So I don't know what else we can say on that, but understand where we are, but obviously be wrong of us not to point out that it seems a long way off. Councillor David.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I'd just like to comment on some of the points that have been made so far at a high level. Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of the Cabinet, and Cabinet will have to make a decision on this paper, but it's clear that the recommendation of option 3, it's an attractive option. But yes, you know, we've got to accept that it is highly ambitious. And I think that in itself will certainly put a lot of emphasis on not just the educational side of it, which Councillor Peat would be far better to address than myself, but certainly on the finance side of it. I think James has gone quite some way to explain where we will be with that, around the fact that everything will have to be closely monitored going forward because of the very volatile and uncertain economic financial situation we're currently in, and we don't know how that's going to work its way in the future. What is clear with regard to Councillor Chris's comments around inflation, yes, it is coming down, and I think the projections are from economists that it'll come down to the Bank of England target of about 2% by midsummer. But then I think that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it'll start increasing again, and a lot of that is down to the geopolitical events that are happening, particularly around energy, etc. We've still got very, very high inflation in the labour market. And obviously core inflation, let's not lose that figure, that's still sitting at about 4.2%. So there is a lot of uncertainty there. On top of that, as James mentioned, you've got interest rates that we'll have to keep a very, very close eye on as well. And to be quite frank, if you look at what's happening in America, you know, it suggests that interest rates aren't going to start falling as rapidly in this country as we'd hope to see them dropping. So that just emphasizes the fact that whereas this is a highly ambitious program, that's commendable, and I think it reflects what we want to achieve within Sustainable Powys, although I accept Councillor Allard's points that there's some there's some concern around exactly where this does fit. But all I'd say there is that we need to remember as well that Sustainable Powys is going to be an ongoing process, and I'd like to think that, you know, it's a new culture that the authority will adopt once we finish the initial phase of it going forward. So in a sense, it's a period of continual change and looking at new ways of delivering things better for our residents. So I just want to emphasise the fact that I'm sitting here, Chair, as a Cabinet member for Finance. That's I'm listening very, very closely to what you've got to say. I'm sure you'll put your recommendations and concerns around the paper to Cabinet before they deliberate on it. And obviously the fact that I'm here, I can actually give some first-hand information with regard to the concerns you're expressing. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor David, and thanks for that clarity. It's really helpful to have some perspective from the Cabinet there, which I'm sure helps. Members, any further questions? Yeah, Richard, welcome to our meeting. I believe this is your first scrutiny meeting. I should have welcomed you in the beginning of the meeting. Thank you for joining us, and we certainly look forward to working with you. But thanks for joining us today. And,
yeah, thanks very much. Diolch yn fawr, Councillor Gwynfor. Yeah, again, my first meeting. So, you know, I don't want to leave it past without saying something. First of all, thank you to Marianne and the team for the huge amount of work that's gone into this. I think for me, you know, essentially I've listened in so far today. You know, it is an ambitious plan. I think the clear alignment with the Welsh Government strategy is a really important part of this work. So it's good to see that there. You know, Councillor Allard spoke about the need for pace and the need for urgency, which we all now properly understand. And I think when we look at the three tranches of the work, or the three waves of the work, I think we will feel pace and speed gather through those three movements. And then just the final point I wanted to make was clearly the importance of, you know, Sustainable Powys being the foundations of all that we're doing at the moment. You know, and Councillor David speaking about the culture change which is happening in the authority, but the alignment to the transforming education strategy clearly is going to be crucial. And there is a little bit of thinking that needs to be done in sync. And I think in the Cabinet session where we present our ideas around transforming education in the context of Sustainable Powys, this SOP will then you'll start to see where it sits as well. And just the last point for me as well is just, I think, to emphasise the importance of, working with our school leaders and our governing bodies around local change, because that's where you start to feel the ownership and ultimately, the buy-in from our communities. But diolch yn fawr, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Allard.
Thank you. I'm just wearing my hat, my finance panel hat for a moment. I know that Governance and Audit and Finance panel have been pushing for a 10-year capital programme to be sit alongside the budget every year, which will obviously be reviewed every year. And I think this, the Welsh Government's 9-year plan, the 12-year plan that Mariana's outlined really does suggest that we need to have that long-term view when we're setting out the budget papers in the spring. So that I think that I'd like this committee to reinforce that as well. It does give a sense of direction, and the schools building programme is probably the biggest element of any capital working programme that I see within Powys. It far outweighs any other capital programme, even highways. So I'd like to see that pushed. And thank you, David, Councillor David, for being here this morning. It is terribly important, inflation and the costs of delivery, but these are sort of 12-year programme, and it's very, very difficult to make that judgment. But so far ahead, of course, there's a bit of volatility currently. It's settling down, but who knows what's around the corner, and we have to be nimble on our feet going forward and adjust to the climate that's prevailing at the time. So maintaining the maximum flexibility with any of these long-term programs is essential. It is really essential. And also what is essential is keeping the pupils at the forefront of our minds. That learner entitlement, that's my fellow portfolio holder from a couple of years ago, kept on banging on about the entitlement of the pupils in Powys is as important as any other part of Wales. So we have got to get this right about making sure that they've got a fantastic environment to learn in, and that environment also supports this teaching staff as well. A lot of the issues and the strains and stresses on the management team within schools is because of the aging buildings we have and the making do, and Marianne touched at the beginning, we've got to calculate the price of doing nothing as well. It's important to understand that. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Aled. I think some good conclusions there, actually. So are there any other questions on this item? No? Members, before we move up it, I would like to draw some conclusions so that recommendations which go to Cabinet, really. I've been making a few points as we go through. I think one of the big points that has been made today, that it has to be aligned with sustainable Powys. Is everybody that, Marianne has explained that it is, but I think it's clear that has to be the objective going forward. It has to be aligned with the transformation policy. It has to be aligned with sustainable Powys. It also has to be aligned with the development of the Welsh language. And by saying that, Marianne, I'm not saying that the paper doesn't say that, but those are some important conclusions which we recognise today.
Personally, Chair, I don't think it does, but that's my
well, no.
I'm
asking them. Marianne clearly said that they've tried to do that, and that's the point that we're making. That we don't believe they are at this stage, but it's a moving feast, isn't it? Anything else? Anybody else would like to add to that? No. Are those three conclusions which we'll recommend to Cabinet, and perhaps have an opportunity to develop that with them in their Cabinet discussions when they bring it. Yeah.
And sorry, Chair, for butting in. I'm just slightly frustrated by the lack of options. It's almost a foregone conclusion about where the Welsh medium school will be, etc., etc. rather than look at the whole of Powys, the education footprint within Powys, about where we need to be within sort of 15, 20 years, and whether this does take us in the right direction, or will we have to swerve again and change direction slightly again in sort of 10 years' time, because it's not delivering that much longer term objective.
It's been an underlying theme of scrutiny that the overall vision, and we're not actually capturing that. Dr. Richard did say in his presentation was that, or in his few words, he did say that you know, it was important that we took into everybody's suggestions and ideas within local catchments at that moment in time. But yes, Aled, yeah, that overall vision still a little bit unclear, and we're not sure whether this captures it. Councillor Bryn.
Hi, yeah, diolch. Dach chi'n clywed fi? Yeah.
Yep.
And done.
Yeah, okay, yeah, diolch. Mae'n ddrwg gen I bod fi dim bach anfantes fan hyn heb y papur ymlaen i'r funud, ond mae o'n rhwystredigaeth gen I. Fyswn i'n licio gweld mae eisiau gwneud siŵr bod ysgolion dwy ffrwd, dim ond yn pethau dros dro, bod ni eisiau symud ymlaen a sicrhau bod yn ysgolion dwyieithog I bawb. Mae perfformiad ysgolion dwyieithog I bawb, mae'n amlwg yn ysgol gynradd, a dyn ni wedi cael y cyfle I weld pa mor amlwg mae o yn ysgolion uwchradd, lle mae'r staff a'r tîm reoli gyd yn canu o'r un llyfr mynes, liciwch chi. Mae eisiau gweld ysgolion uwchradd dwy ffrwd fel pethau dros dro, a mae eisiau symud ymlaen efo ysgolion uwchradd dwyieithog I bawb, ysgolion sydd deilliannau cystal yn y Gymraeg a'r Saesneg I bob plentyn. Jyst gobeithio bod hwnna'n cael ei gweld fel rhywbeth yn y tymor, wel, bod yn cael ei gweld fel dyfodol yn hytrach na rhywbeth sydd byth yn mynd I ddigwydd yn Powys. Diolch.
Okay, that links with Councillor Ali's point in relation to the overall vision. We're not sure that this captures it and the direction in which education in Powys is moving. Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. All right then. If everybody's happy then, that concludes item 5. Thanking everybody for attending on that one. Thank you, officers, for taking your time. I think it's a really, really interesting paper, and Aled opened it up by saying, yes, he welcomes the timeliness of it. So it's great that it has come before us now. I'm just looking at the agenda now. Trying to find it. Right. That concludes the business of today now. But if members would like to stay on after, we can have a quick chat about different things. But that concludes the business. So thank everybody for their attendance today. And if members of the committee, and I extend that invite to the finance panel as well, if they want to stay down for a bit of committee reflection, more than happy to do so. So thanks everybody for attending. We'll see you at our next meeting. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr.